everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish on the Movies. And I just wanted to say a little thing that lately Marco has been doing quite a few more reviews than me. The reason is because I have become a reseller on eBay, Poshmark, and Mercari, which I like, but it is a lot of work. However, this hasn't prevented me from watching movies. Our latest review is of Knives Out, an Oscar-nominated movie nominated for Best Screenplay and Best Movie of 2019.
Best Original Screenplay.
Okay. In the past, I might have revealed the whole cast, but decided to mention the most interesting, notable, or ones who I really appreciated for their fine acting skills. Chris Evans, Mr. Captain America of the Marvel Universe, plays Ransom Drysdale. He's a real bad boy, but his good looks and hero persona somewhat belie the badness of what he has done or tries to do later on in the movie. Jamie Lee Curtis is Ransom's mom, Linda Drysdale, who is seemingly good but will turn on you in the worst way if she doesn't like something you did or didn't do. Daniel Craig has a humongous part in which he mysteriously appears at the beginning of a police investigation, a figure sitting in the shadows, affirming or disapproving of those being questioned by tapping on a key on the piano. That was funny. Daniel is the well-known Benoit Blanc, a detective novelist who shows up unannounced and uninvited, except for one person who sent him an article and a pack of money, inviting him to participate in this investigation. He doesn't know the identity of the sender, and nobody seems to know who he is. I must say that after watching the slick and superior Daniel Craig in his latest 007 movie trailer, it was quite surprising to find him in this movie brandishing a southern accent. The other two intriguing and excellent actors I'm going to mention are Nurse Anna, played by Marta Cabrera, who has an extremely large and important...
What? You just mixed it up. Her name in the movie is Marta. Her name in real life is Anna.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I do think so. I know.
Okay, well, sorry I screwed up, but it's the nurse, okay? She has an extremely large and important role and does an excellent job. And Christopher Plummer is the other actor who I really love. He plays Harlan Thrombey, her patient who just died. He's just committed suicide or been a victim of a murder. Plummer is an actor of many talents, and he and Marta, I believe, should at least have been nominated for Oscars. The story is Harlan Thrombey does suddenly die of a suicide or murder, and an investigation occurs by the police and Benoit. The first quarter of the movie is boring because it's talking, and I fell asleep. I've read many mystery books, but a movie is not a book and should not pretend to be one. Afterward, the plain talking period ended, and the movie picked up, and we were treated to visuals of the previous evening's events that led to the suicide or murder. I won't say anything else about the plot except we will discover in the end what really happened, and there are a few twists and turns which I believe, contrary to what Marco thinks, are fun and interesting. Marco?
What are you talking about?
Go ahead.
I didn't say they weren't fun or interesting. I said that they were predictable and therefore kind of lame, and they weren't really satisfying. It's satisfying when you learn something different happened than what you expected, and or someone else did it rather than who you suspected. And but I saw this movie against seeing Richard Jewell. Unfortunately, I saw it for free basically because we got a Regal gift card as part of a rewards program, and so I'm glad that I didn't pay any money to support the filmmaker who made this, but I still really enjoyed it. But first off, when I was watching the movie, I thought I should mention I'm warning you because the movie's still going to be out at least for another month or two. If you go see it, be warned. There's going to be a bunch of old people in the theater, and that isn't a negative thing in general, but in particular, this group of old people who sees Knives Out, they can be chatty Cathys. And so when I saw this movie, there was two old women, and they were sitting a row ahead of me. Well, two rows ahead of me, I guess. And they were chatting the whole movie. They were asking each other questions. They were telling each other plot points. They were laughing at every single joke, which was funny because they were so old fashioned. You'd think that they would kind of go ugh at some of the jokes because they're so R-rated type of jokes. I won't talk about those, but they just kept chatting the whole movie. And so if you see this movie, don't make a big deal about it. Just see it and just focus on the movie. I mean, at the beginning, when they were watching the trailers, they were chatting through the trailers. They showed the trailer for 1917, and at the end they were like, why does the theater have to be so loud? And then they had a point with this next one, but it was just a very old-fashioned and queer remark that they showed these other trailers that were kind of race baity, Oscar bait, race dramas, because it's getting close to February, Black History Month, and one of them said, "Why do they keep making so many racial movies nowadays?" They didn't even say racial; they said racial, and so it was really funny. And so I could tell that I was actually considering moving up a row just so that I could memorize the stupid shit they were saying throughout the movie, and see what kind of commentary I could bring to you guys, because that kind of added to the experience in a negative way and a positive way. But I think that the movie overall, it's very flawed in a lot of ways, but I still had a good time with it. I still enjoyed it quite a bit, and it felt like a very smart movie. It had a lot of clever stuff, clever humor, clever character writing, and there was some stuff that I really liked, but then there was also some stuff I really didn't like, such as the ending. I didn't like the way the movie was structured. I didn't like a couple of the characters who I thought they were very one-dimensional, and they were very stereotypical. And then also I thought the mystery could have had some work a little bit, because really the movie's main flaw is the structure. The way that they choose to structure it, I think of it as different segments. First off, you have the opening segment, which is like the question and answer. That goes on for 40 minutes, and it's boring. It is sluggish. It just and the reason why is because they're trying to be so clever about it. They're cutting back and forth, doing flashbacks and everything to the party, and they're doing all these clever little editing things, and it actually has the opposite effect of where it feels like it's actually going on, just it won't stop, like it'll just keep going on and on. And then they get to this part that's actually pretty good, the segment that has to do with the nurse and basically her and her whole story. But then it gets to the segment where she joins another character on sort of a mini adventure, And that was another horribly boring and just stupid segment. I hated that segment. It was my least favorite part of the movie. And then it gets really exciting again towards the end. And then the ending is a huge disappointment because it feels like it's building up to something, and then it just ends. So, what do you think, Safi? What do you have
Well,
to add?
I I agree with you.
No spoilers, Safi.
Uh, I don't know. The structure, I guess, would be like me saying that they're trying to make it like a book in the beginning, and I've a lot of the books I've read lately are audible books. I mean, they're you just listen to them because I have to do other chores, and then that's the only way I can do it both because you can't do dishes while turning the pages of a book, which I've mentioned a million times, I think. But anyway, a movie can't be like that. So I'm not a movie editor, and Marco probably could have edited it better because this is what he likes and what he could be doing. I bet. But anyway, um, as far as the ending, I don't know what to tell you. I I'll just say this, which I've already said. It surprised me, and that surprised me that I was surprised because I've read so many murders, and it gets to be like a formula, and you just know all the little tricks that mystery writers employ to make their story, and I just like maybe I'm distracted or I'm too busy or it just was really clever. I didn't I didn't figure it out, and so that's why I gave it a more positive review than I would have because I told you at the beginning I fell asleep. I don't think that's a good thing, and I realize it is a time of the day where I take a nap, but
I started
still,
falling asleep too. By the way, when that whole beginning it just kept going on and on.
yeah, it did. It went on and on and on and on like it was a book, like you're reading
Yeah.
a book. And when you're reading a book, whether you listen to it or you read it by turning the pages, you can stop if you're falling asleep. And sometimes when people go to bed at night and they can't sleep, they'll read a book and the book will put them to sleep. So even if it's a good story, it's just because that's what books, I mean, they're just in a different
She
structure.
had a pretzel, and she had. Did you have a whole pretzel or pretzel bites?
I don't know what you're talking about.
When you saw Knives Out, you had food
Oh, I
and
had a
drink.
whole pretzel, one of those
Okay,
big ones.
she had a whole
Forgot
pretzel
about that.
and a slushie, and still I mean icy, and still she was falling asleep. And I started falling asleep too, and you know that that's bad because I never fall asleep
Yeah,
when I
that's
watch a
right.
film. In fact, if a film is bad, then I actually start to become more awake because I get so effing pissed off at what I'm seeing, like with Ready or Not. And so, yeah, I think that this movie, one of the biggest surprises was the acting. The acting was really, really good,
Yes.
even with the mediocre script that could have been improved. I think that the acting performances, if you see this movie, you see it for those performances, basically, and that's it. Because the movie, it really doesn't do anything new besides structure. They structure it differently to
Yeah.
make it seem kind of clever, like, oh, we're telling you what happened, but no, we're actually not. And so, yeah, I think that the acting is a particular highlight,
Well,
such as
yeah.
Michael Shannon. What about you, Safi? What were
Well,
you gonna say?
I was just going to say that, like I said, I've read a lot of detective or mystery novels, and the thing about Daniel Craig showing up, and then you don't see him at first. You have all the lights on, and you're in I guess, the living room of a study or something.
That's the coolest room.
It is a neat room because in the back is a piano, and I think there's books, and there's nice chairs. I mean, it's just an interesting. It's a multiple dimensional room. Anyway, there's two police people, and they're investigating. So they're asking questions. They're asking questions of each person, of course. And then you have this, all of a sudden you pan to the back of the room, and it's not too far back, but you see Daniel Craig, and he's sitting, and after just watching this trailer of 007, it's like through me. Because this starts at the very beginning of the movie, practically. And you see him, and they are asked questions, and then when he doesn't like what they say for some reason, he taps the key on the piano, and everybody looks back. They're like, "Who are you?" And nobody seems to know who he is. And I'm like, "Who
Actually,
is
Jamie
that?"
Lee Curtis does.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway.
That's probably when she fell asleep, so.
Yeah, it could be. But anyway, nobody seemed, most everybody who were being who were being interviewed, sorry, didn't know who he was. And I'm like, what is he doing there in a police interview? Because they're usually on every other movie or TV show, they get pissy about anybody in an interview. It should be between them only and the person being interviewed, and that's it. So this guy, and he has a beautiful suit on. He's very distinguished and sophisticated, like he is all the time. Only he has a southern accent, and I don't think he talked yet either. For a long time, they were like asking who he was. I don't think he said anything. He just kept tapping out keys on the piano when he didn't like the answers they were giving.
And he was built up to be a badass type of character, like a mysterious, badass detective, and then the rest of the movie, he literally does nothing.
Well, he doesn't.
He does like a couple of little heroic things. Like there's one particular scene where he stands up for another character, and I thought that scene was really, really good. And I thought his character was cool, but other than that, his character did nothing besides just observe people and observe the story. Like, he basically could have been us. Like, you could have walked into the movie, and then you could have been him, basically.
Well, it could be because he was in that 007 movie maybe around the same time, or he's such a hero in those kind of movies. It was different to see him play a more minimal hero in this movie.
He wasn't really a hero. In fact, the one chance he had to be a hero, he actually it just worked out in a good way, where he didn't have to live with being a failure. But other than that, I think that again, the highlight is the acting. Michael Shannon did a fantastic job, and I think that he was snubbed for supporting actor. I think that Christopher Plummer did a great job. As Safi said, I think that the main girl, she did a great job. And I also like the cameo from the guy from Blood Simple, which Safi didn't even realize. The guy with the VHS tape of the surveillance, he was the guy from Blood Simple, the quote bad guy. Because really, in that movie, everyone almost was a bad guy. So, and let's also, I'm going to mention the politics, and Safi can kind of just, pretend that, because she's not going to agree, but there are some very forced political agendas in this movie. There are scenes where, but actually it backfired to me, because there's a certain scene where the family is sitting around and all they're doing is talking about politics. And to me, it backfired to where it was like, oh, look at these snobby, stupid, rich people sitting around in this secluded house in the middle of nowhere talking about, like, the issues that go on in the real world. Like, they don't live in the real world. They have no idea what they're talking about. And so to me, it actually came off as more of a comedy, and like it backfired. But I know what he's trying to do, having that stupid agenda shit, mentioning certain hot button issues, and having it be really one-sided. But it also worked a little bit with the nurse, because I thought it was funny how they never actually knew where she came from. That they kept saying that she came from a different place. and I thought that was hilarious, and that was one of the most effective jokes. But I also think, in terms of politics, the little kid, he was literally a stereotype. I mean, you think about stereotypes in movies. People would never be okay nowadays with a black person sitting around, uh, I don't know, eating watermelon and fried chicken. They'd never be okay with that nowadays. But since you have this little white boy, they're okay. They're perfectly fine with making him basically a stereotype of him, sitting around on Twitter typing up racist things, I guess, and so I had a big problem with that,
Well,
especially.
there was something about him being in the bathroom too, and I'm not gonna say
Yeah,
it. Please
and we
don't
won't.
say it either.
It was a
I didn't like
hilarious
that at
joke,
all.
but it was stereotypical, and it's like, oh, this is typical. This is just political propaganda. It's like SNL level humor, and so that was a big problem with
Well,
the movie.
it didn't fit in the movie actually.
That character didn't fit in the movie. That character.
Well, that's right. He didn't need to be in the movie. They didn't need him.
He had nothing to him. But the scene though that I did. So you agree with me that kid was a stupid stereotype that served to fit a political agenda and nothing else.
I didn't think of it in either way. I just thought he had like maybe 3 lines or 2 lines. It's the kid who played in It, and the first It, and well, I guess he's in the second one too. He had a very big part. He's the one that
the main kid.
The main one whose little brother was killed by It, and well,
But please,
anyway.
please tell me, what other purpose did he have in the movie other than to serve a political agenda?
I was just thinking so they can show that there's somebody younger, not just all older.
They did have somebody younger. They had that teenager who's in college.
Oh yeah,
the
but
feminist teenager.
She didn't look very young.
No, she.
So, but I mean, a kid, and
yeah.
He played something. I mean, I didn't like that at all, and I thought it didn't fit and it didn't belong and it.
I thought it was funny, but I thought it was blatantly offensive.
Well, I thought I was offended in a different way.
Stereotypical. Well, we all know why you were offended with that.
No, I don't even know what you're talking about. I was offended at the sexual thing.
Yeah, I know, but I thought it was funny. But I knew that. Oh, look what they're doing. They're reinforcing the stereotype.
Okay, well, whatever.
And so, but the point is that it's so hilarious because it just demonstrates how these certain filmmakers, they can make really good movies, but then they choose to have all this disgusting messaging, this disgusting anti-white male political messaging in these movies nowadays. And if they took that out, maybe more people would see this movie, and maybe more people would like this movie. And so it just demonstrates how that stuff, it affects the whole movie. Because notice, I had a lot of good things to say about this movie, and you could easily take that stupid ass political stuff out of this movie, and I would be just as happy with it. And so it's like, why even have it in there? Just to piss me off?
Well, I think the immigration thing, I know you had been talking about that. I think that I can imagine, really, a writer sitting there, well, let's make her a little more interesting and we can fit this thing in there because, she does have doesn't she have a little bit of an accent? And anyway, that I could see them saying, let's make her a little more interesting and we can actually fit this thing about immigration in there. But they didn't have to.
It did kind of fit. It did kind of fit.
It did fit better than the other thing. The other thing was misplaced.
I was discussing how they were sitting in that room, remember, and they're like, let's not talk about politics. And then all the family starts talking about politics. and to me, I thought that it backfired because it was like, look at these snobby, stupid rich people talking about stuff they know nothing about.
Right. Especially the ones that got a tax break.
And so, my favorite scene of the movie, by the way, since we just got done with all that political shit, my favorite scene was the will reading, the scene right before it when they're waiting to do the will reading, when Chris Evans first arrives, and he's sitting there eating cookies, and then his father is fighting. I mean, literally fighting against this other father who says that his son is better than Chris Evans. And that was just hilarious. That was so cool and so fun and funny. And I loved that. Was my favorite scene of the whole movie. So even though that little brat, that stereotypical offensive caricature, even though he was meaningless to the movie, I thought it was hilarious how they were fighting over who had the worst son.
Yeah. Well, okay. I think
What
we
do you
should
rate it?
Okay, well, I was fooled, and that's weird because all I read are mysteries. Nothing is what it seems, and nothing is what people believe or think happened. The movie takeaways are: it was nice, albeit weird, to see Daniel Craig, usually plays the worldly and sophisticated 007, transform into a sophisticated Southerner talking in a fairly decent Southern accent. Is it Marta did an excellent job as Anna, the nurse?
No, it's Anna did an excellent job as Marta.
Okay, I'm just not going to get that. She and Christopher Plummer, the victim, should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actress and Actor. Chris Evans is too pretty to be evil. He looks like a hero boy, and right now he will always be a heroic personality.
Why are you revealing he's evil?
Well, he's a bad boy at the beginning, huh? All throughout the movie.
No, he's not.
He's the whipping boy of the cast, huh?
They said he was the black sheep.
Well, that's the same thing.
And for a while in the middle, they made it kind of look like he would be like the secret hero. Like, oh, he's Captain America. He's the secret good guy.
Yeah, but that was a facade. Anyway, since the movie was so talky and dry in the beginning that I briefly fell asleep, I have to downgrade the movie a bit. But because it picked up and surprised me, a mystery and novel aficionado, I'll give it a black and white cookie. Now, for me, this could be a fudge-iced half of cookie, while the other half is just plain, with no icing. On TV, I've seen chefs decorate a black and white cookie where one half has chocolate frosting and the other has white frosting. My made-up version of the cookie is, once again, one half frosted in fudge and the other half left plain. And that is how I reviewed the movie, Knives Out. How about you, Marco?
That was funny. You guys couldn't see that, but Safi's paper just fell all over the floor.
Yeah, I write my reviews out. That's just the way. I can't do off-the-cuff reviews.
She could if she actually put effort into doing it.
No, I don't think I could. I just can't.
And so, my review's gonna upset people.
Oh, Marco.
And well, that's the point. Is that the movie? I thought it was a fun time, regardless of all the flaws. But then you got to the ending, and the ending it just ended, and it felt like the ending really built up to something more, and then it just went and it disappeared. And so I would rate this movie. I was thinking a lot about cookies and a lot about Thanksgiving and a lot about staying inside when it's cold out and having a blanket on and staying warm. And so I thought I would rate this movie, and also because of the acting, the various actors, I would rate this movie, excuse me, sorry, our heater is malfunctioning. I would rate this movie, you know how when it's Christmas Eve, you leave a plate of cookies for Santa? I would give this movie a plate of cookies, homemade cookies. You have a gingerbread cookie, which represents, I guess, Christopher Plummer. You have.
Go ahead, Marco.
You have a chocolate chip. You have a chocolate chip cookie to represent the main girl, and then you have an M&M cookie. You have a sugar cookie. You have all sorts of different types of cookies, and I could go into detail with that, but I bet that a lot of people don't even care. Like when I do these really in-depth food reviews, they don't even care. But I could if I wanted to. But yeah, it's a plate of cookies. Now here's the bad thing. The milk, you'd think that since you have a plate of cookies that are warm, they're hot actually. They're hot, they're right out of the oven. And they're warm, you'd think, oh, I can't wait to dip these cookies in milk. And then, uh-oh, there's no milk. And then, since it's Santa Claus, he's like, do I really have to go to the refrigerator and open it up and look for milk all by myself? They're supposed to do that for me. And so then he goes to the refrigerator, he opens it up, and there's no milk in the refrigerator either because they're vegans. And so that's what it felt like to me. I wanted to upset you guys because to me it's actually very upsetting thinking about getting a plate of warm cookies in the middle of winter time, and they're good cookies regardless of their flaws, and then there's no milk at the end to dip the cookies into.
I thought you were gonna say when he tries the milk, it's spoiled.
Well, the thing about that is that would imply that there was something I didn't like that happened at the end, instead of something just ended and there wasn't anything more. Because I didn't hate, in fact, I love the ending. The ending, I was getting really excited because, spoiler alert, the whole movie, this disgusting family has been inside this house. They're just inside there. It's like they're occupying it, like homeless people. And they won't get out. And they won't leave. They're these horrible people. And then finally, at the end of the movie, they're standing outside and they're standing by their cars. And they're getting ready to leave and everything and just go off and go live wherever they're going to live. And then the main girl comes out of the house and she stands on the balcony and she's sipping Christopher Plummer's mug, and while she's doing that, all the family members turn around and look at her like they want to kill her. And I thought, ooh, this is really exciting. There's going to be one last part where you think the movie's over, but then it's at nighttime and all the family turns into murderers. And the knives really come out instead of just one knife with Chris Evans, because that was a really cool scene with Chris Evans. Spoiler alert, he picks up a knife after she pukes on him, which we didn't even talk about her puking thing, but whenever she lies, she pukes, and so she secretly lied to get him to confess, and then she pukes all over him, and basically it was like entrapping him, Safi, but the only reason it won't be considered entrapping him is because she doesn't work with the police. She's just herself. And so really it's actually they're kind of cheating, the way that they got him to confess. And then after she pukes on him, he grabs a knife and he thrusts himself at her to kill her. And then she's on the ground and he figures out that it's a retractable knife. Which, if you don't know what that means, it's a prop knife that they use for movies. That when you stab something, the blade goes inside of the knife, and it's not a real blade. And so that was hilarious. That was really cool, and that was probably another highlight of the movie. But I was really disappointed in the ending. What do you think, Safi? Do you have any spoilers you want to discuss?
No, I didn't know we were doing spoilers.
We always do spoilers.
Okay, well, that was great. And truthfully, I didn't like the title. But then...
because the title's disappointing, because in the end, who has the knives out is just one guy. who
Well,
takes out a knife and tries to kill her. It's not the whole family.
I wasn't even thinking of that metaphor or whatever, where well, I did say that they're all nicey. The family's all nicey in the beginning, and the guy dies, and they said, well, no matter what happens, we're going to help you, nurse, whatever your name is, and
That's mean.
we're gonna support you, and because you have really helped our father, and we're so appreciative. And then at the end, they're like, knives out, and I didn't even think of that about, because that usually means that people turn, and knives out means they're.
I didn't really think
I
they
didn't
turned.
even think of that.
I didn't really think they turned very much. I thought that they weren't really evil to her. They were just very entitled
Well,
and sort of
but they were upset
manipulative.
because they were greedy, and
They weren't
they didn't
really.
get what they expected.
I mean, they didn't try to kill her or anything. They could have,
No,
which would
no.
have been really cool. I was waiting for like it to be nighttime, and then each person tries to kill her in like a various way, and that would have been funny because then it's like, the whole family are killers now, and they're all going to jail. That would have been funny to me, and really fun. Because the ending was a little Hallmark movie-ish for me,
Oh, Marco.
where she's sipping the cup, and we see that it's the same cup from the beginning of the movie. It was kind of Hallmark movie-ish. But yeah,
brother.
I think it was a pretty good movie. I enjoy watching it. I definitely think though that it's more of a movie you watch at home on Netflix or on Amazon.
Yeah.
It's not really a movie you need to see in theaters
No.
unless
Not
you
really.
want to go there and hear these chatty Cathys. So
Okay, well, I think
that's
we
it.
should stop it now.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.